Welcome, everybody. Welcome. It always looks like magic, everybody popping in at once. The best kind of magic to have our community arrive.
Hello, hello.
Look at that. Give everybody a minute to get their sound connected and arrive. Look at that.
So good to see faces I haven't seen in a while.
Yeah. Such a treasure.
And the ones I have seen.
Everybody. All right, as we're arriving here in our Zoom room, our Zoom circle, I invite everybody to take a moment and let the busy day slip behind you. Maybe pat over your heart or your clavicles, arriving, reminding us that we are inhabiting these beautiful bodies in this beautiful moment. Come to stillness and a couple of good breaths. Sneezing dogs and all. Let me light a candle here to remind us that the divine is with us here in our beautiful community. And have a brief opening prayer for us. Ooh, smoky. This is called Prayer for Peace. Let us know peace, for as long as the moon shall rise, for as long as the rivers shall flow, for as long as the sun shall shine, for as long as the grass shall grow, let us know peace. Cheyenne prayer adapted by Philip Dunn. Blessings all.
Thank you, Rev Carrie, and thanks to everyone for showing up. After all, you are ChI, and so this is your update. This is really your time, our time together. I'm Andrew Church. I'm the executive director of the Chaplaincy Institute. And even after, 3 years, I still get a little nervous doing these because this is a big deal for me. This is a big honor. This is important work. I consider this part of my ministry, and it matters. I think this work really matters in the world. So thank you again for being here. We're going to go through a really simple sort of a flow this afternoon. I think it's afternoon for most of the folks here, although we do have to kind of check ourselves these days because we have more and more people from more and more places. The place I'm in right now is in Tucson, Arizona, in the Santa Cruz watershed in the Sonoran Desert on Tohono O'odham land. Yeah, and I just offer you, just take a moment to inhale, exhale. Think of the ancestors on whose shoulders you stand. Think of the people on whose land you might be sitting, standing, making a living, and so forth. And just a moment of gratitude. Just a moment of gratitude for Gina Rose Halpern, the founder, for her vision, for all of the students, for the over 500 chaplaincy and spiritual direction students who have come through ChI in the last 23 plus years. On behalf of the folks that those people have been with and supported and cared for out in the world. Just a reminder to come back to that work, come back to the mission of ChI, which is why we are here. I'm going to share my screen now and get to the business-y part. I will get to what this is, not my word. but I heard Reverend Sidney Morris use this term called administry. So I'm going to get to the administry part of my ministry and talk to you about how we're doing as an organization. And I will turn it over to Bonnie Lang to get the board 10,000 or 40,000 foot view of where we're going, what's important, and so forth. And then we're going to turn it over to you for questions, for some conversation. So I would invite you to feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will work through those after our time. You should have plenty of time, I think, to answer, Q&A type things. And yeah, like I said, this is your time. So Bonnie, I think this is your term, meeting the future. I really, really love it, because that's kind of what this feels like. It feels like we're at a bit of an intersection. So today is meant, again, really to be a conversation. We're going to give you some updates. And then I hope to have that conversation here in a few minutes with you and see what your thoughts are. So the first thing I will offer up is this health checkup. Like every so often heading to a doctor, if I'm lucky enough and smart enough and remember to go in and get a checkup. We take some certain vital statistics and vital signs. So let's talk about those. We'll talk about enrollments, which are really the lifeblood of ChI through the seminary. We'll talk about finances, which have been a story of ups and downs over the last 20 years. And we are just coming out of a down session that was really, really challenging. And I'm going to give you an honest look at what that has meant for us and kind of where we're standing right now, where we are located. And then really what I think of as some good problems to have. They're problems that we have that we're going to face, that we are facing already. They are good problems. So I think that's, I say that's a cautiously optimistic note that I hope to leave this on. Starting off with enrollments, big green light there. So what you're looking at, this chart, this trend line, and hopefully everybody can see that. Is it too teeny tiny or is it viewable? Okay. I'll just draw your attention to the purple line, which is the sort of moving average of the number of people who find us online and then go through the trouble or take the time to fill out the contact form and say, yes, I want to know more. It doesn't mean they're enrolling, but it means they want to know more. And so over the years, we have learned that when ChI is really, really healthy, we average about 2 of those per day. And 2 per day means some pretty good growth of our classrooms, more students coming in than graduating. So for the last, I guess, over 6 months now, that trend has been going up because of a lot of hard work that's been happening behind the scenes. The purple line will show you that through February, we are averaging over 2.5 per day. And if you look at that dashed dotted line in the background there, it's kind of grayed out, transparent, but you can see that one. That's not an average. That's just an actual monthly number per day. And you can see that it has popped up over 3 per day a couple of times now. And it's just really, really strong. It's unprecedented, in fact. And the difference between 2 and 3 per day doesn't seem like a lot to, maybe at first glance, but it's big, right? It's not quite doubling, but it represents some huge growth in our classrooms. So our classroom sizes will thankfully be kind of bumping up against the upper limit of what we're comfortable with pretty soon. And we don't want to go too big because then we lose kind of that personal touch. And so we always keep an eye on that, but we need, a minimum of probably 8 students per course to make it worthwhile. And we really don't want any more than, depending on the course, anywhere from say 18 to 22 would be an ideal maximum number. Some a little bit more than that, some a little bit less. All this to say, this trend line is really eye-opening and attention-getting. It got my attention and continues to. So that's good news. So that was a green light. This onto the finances. This is a yellow light. It's not where it needs to be. So the left-hand, well, there are three columns. One is the titles, the labels of each section. Then the middle column represents this academic year or this fiscal year, which started July 1st and will end June 30th. So we're 2/3 of the way through, roughly 3/4 of the way through almost. And through that 3/4 of the year, we're still down $25,000. We're in the hole, basically $25,000 for the year. That's a lot. That is, we're essentially looking in the rear view mirror. If I can back you up to the enrollments slide we just looked at, which was the green light, that data, that indicator is really kind of, if you're thinking about driving a car, that data is forward looking. It's looking out the windshield saying like, what's ahead of us? This data is looking in the rear view mirror saying what is behind us and where are we right this moment. So really a tale of two paths. One path was going down, one path looks to be going up pretty steeply, but it's produced a lot of stress on ChI. And so we cut, I'll just draw your attention to one number on here. You see the number that's called 7,000 personnel related. It's about 2/3 of the way down on the left side. So basically that's anything that's related to people expense. So salaries, faculty payments, that's pretty much it. So this year we're at $262,000 roughly in people expense. Last year, we were at $382,000 in people expense. So we have cut that a lot. And I want to say the names again of the people that lost their jobs in a really tough time. We had to do layoffs, and Carrie here lost some hours from her schedule, and 3 other people were let go. So these numbers mean things. They play out in the terms of a story and an effect on someone's life. And this is that story. And it's a really a painful one. And I just want to lift it up. I don't like to share, difficult news. And at the same time, that is part of administry. That is part of responsible governance of an organization. And it matters, how we conduct ourselves. And this year has been a tough one in terms of the toll on real people. Now, I will say, because of that lower personnel related expense, $120,000 less, roughly, that has meant the difference of ChI's survival. Basically, had we not, lowered that expense, we wouldn't be here, I think, today. So I think it's important to just recognize we did a hard thing. And as I think it's Glennon Doyle says, we can do hard things, right? And we did. And we have come through, and we are here. We are capable, and you got a bunch of really dedicated, loving folks working really, really hard right now to turn this around. And we're going to need your help, your involvement, and the help of a lot more people. So that's to come. Now onto the good signs, the good news, if you will, or some good news. This period, what's been happening since we really had a hard time in last spring, almost a year ago, really, is when it really started to get difficult, when enrollments took a real nosedive at that time. Our income took a real nosedive, and we didn't have the financial tools in place to really be able to predict that in advance as far as we could. It's a little like if you're on an airline flight, they have radar and all sorts of fancy predictive tools now that can tell them when there's a storm ahead, and they're able to change course, fly around it, go over it, go under it. We mostly flew right into a thunderstorm or some really heavy turbulence last year because we didn't have that radar. And we do now. So we've sort of invested, not sort of, we have invested and doubled down and put that into place. So we've got a process and the tools now to look into the future and see what's ahead and make decisions before we run into trouble. Grow enrollment. So we've had a really big initiative with a company, a vendor called Grow Enrollments, who are really good at what they do. And they, as you can tell, that's what they do, is help grow enrollments. So they spent about 7 months with us, revamping parts of our website, revamping the pathway that someone would travel from the time they find out about us. So the time they're in discernment and they're just thinking like, gosh, there's got to be something better I can do with my life. How can I make a difference? And what is that? And they start searching for things, and they often start searching for the words interfaith or chaplaincy or healthcare chaplain or spiritual director. When they get to that point, we are now there with a nice, attractive sign and a welcoming presence that says, the Chaplaincy Institute is the best in the business. We are top quality, highly respected. We have hundreds of students who have come through and had great experiences with us. This is a place where you can come and transform yourself to do the work that you're called to do. Well, we really upped our game in regards to that. And we're much more visible now. So that is what's happening behind the scenes of that purple line that I showed you that was trending up. People are seeing us more because of our communications. Carrie has helped us with that, really doubling down and making sure that we're represented professionally and in a way that feels authentic to who ChI really is, right? So our public presence looks good. Our processes look good. Now it's not so hard to find out how to apply. It used to be actually really hard to figure out, okay, I'm sold. ChI looks great. Now, how do I apply? And people would complain because they couldn't figure out our website and how to actually get in touch with someone. So that's really a big deal. It's a big deal. And then the last thing is that one of the things these tools have pointed out is, or allowed us to see, is that our pricing is not where it needs to be. So you're going to hear more about this in a minute. But one of the things we did was a sort of a critical systems kind of evaluation of, well, how much does it cost to educate one student? Or how much does it cost for an entire cohort when they're ordained? What was the cost to ChI? And then how much were those folks paying? And then how much did we get in other support? And then are we coming out at least break even, a little bit ahead or a little bit behind? And we found out that we're not charging enough. The truth is we deliver such a high value product, such a high value education and experience. It's just packed with richness. And many of you know this. Well, that richness has value. And frankly, we are undervalued in terms of what we're delivering or what we're charging. And the good news there is that we actually do have room to raise our prices. It's probably not as much as we could or as we should, but we can make some more positive movement in raising our prices while still not becoming just outrageously overpriced or, completely inaccessible to folks. So we're confident that we can still do what we need to do, bring in a little bit more money for the coffers to provide the help we need, which I'm going to talk about in a second. The challenges. Staff are tired. Staff are tired. So we have every bit as much work to do today as we did a year ago. And we have a little more than half of the number of people to do that work. That's a big deal. That has come at a cost. So that's another human cost that has been a part of our story this year, and it's been a part of our story in the past. This is a side of ChI that I am personally resolved to figuring out and to addressing, because it's as great as the work we do is, and as compelling as our mission is, the cost behind the scenes is often really, really high in terms of human burnout. So again, I'm committed to lifting that up and keeping work in partnership with the board and each of you, finding a better way so that we don't do this. But the good news here is that the staff who are here because they love this place. They love the work we do. I love the work we do, and I am proud. I'm still proud and grateful to be able to do this. And I'm grateful that it looks like we're going to get some relief soon. We need more relief. And like I said, I feel like the tide has turned. So again, challenges though, the more students that we have, the more work there's going to be to do. And the more work there is to do, and we're already short-staffed, so we need to add staff back, which is what Bonnie and I were talking about the other day in terms of growing pains. Right? It's like good problems to have. As we add students on, we have to figure out where to put them. Thankfully, we have room in our classrooms right now without adding more classrooms. But they all need administrative support. They need that high touch, really caring, loving connection with Katrina, with their academic advisors, with the faculty. That's just how we roll at ChI. We do things to a really high standard, and that's expensive and hard in a sense. It's worth it though. It's worth it. So yeah, there are growing pains. And then what I want to sort of leave you with is this notion. I just came across this little picture of this guy. I think it's a little boy, a little human answering the phone. And it's like the future is calling us, right? The future is calling. Are we going to answer that call? And I've been walking around with these two words, never again, in my kind of rattling around for me, never again. And I want to say never again will we allow ourselves to get caught unawares. Never again should she allow itself to be extractive of the people who work here out of, really loving, dedicated place. Never again should we allow ourselves to be out of balance or out of right relationship with all of the parts of ourselves, our community, our employees, our board, our staff, volunteers. So what can we do? What can we do for that? What can we do to address that and really put ChI in a position for the next we're almost 25 actually. So how are we going to position ourselves for the next 25 years? And that's a miracle. I think it's a miracle that we had almost 25 years now. And by golly, it looks like we're going to have some more years. So how do we say never again to the things that we haven't gotten right? How do we say the sacred no to those things no more? Are we going to allow these things to happen so that we can, as I was joking with Carrie the other day, I don't want us to make the same old mistakes or missteps as we have in the past. I want to make new and exciting mistakes, right? Because we're doing new and exciting things and taking chances and innovating and being all the things that ChI is great at. So we need to activate ourselves as a community. I really think that we can be a community of mutual support. There are so many opportunities coming up. We've got our retreat coming in Santa Cruz in just a matter of weeks, really, a little over a month or so. We've got Parliament of World Religions coming up later this year. Love a huge ChI contingent where we take over the place and people are just saying like, what? Chaplaincy Institute, who are these people and where do they come from? Because they're so well represented. There is room for volunteers. We've already had some fantastic people step up and say, hey, I've got experience in this area. How can I help? And several folks, and actually, I want to say some of the names would be Michelle Gantz, Several of our work study students are working really hard. We've got some new folks. Elizabeth Becker, I would say your name. I'm going to miss so many people here. All of our board members, some folks serving on our committees and doing consulting for us, pro bono. There's so much help, and there's so much room for more of us to be involved and really in ways that feel great. Board service, there's almost always an opportunity at some point, board terms are up. So I would ask you, are you the one? Are you the next board treasurer, board secretary? Are you the next board member? Are you the next, advancement committee member? Are you the one? Is it your turn? And if it's not your turn, I bless you. I thank you because you're doing other things that you need to do. But if it is your turn, I invite you. We need you. We need your help. We need your expertise and your caring and your involvement. So please, find ways to get involved. And thank you for the ways you are already involved. And the last thing is we need help with fundraising. We'll need to raise, round numbers here, to position chief for the next 25 years. It's going to be an audacious goal. And it's going to be an exciting goal because what we'll have is a campaign and a vision that says, like, imagine what's possible. Imagine the future that's waiting for us if we can fund it and develop it and be ready to meet it with open arms. We're going to have to raise a fair bit of money, and we can do it. Other organizations have done much more, and we've done so much with so little. I'm really proud of us, and I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful. When I look out the windshield, and I also think it's important to acknowledge where we've just been, which is a tough, difficult time. And we're resolved to acknowledging the things that didn't go well, learning from the things that did and building on those and moving forward in a spirit of yes, a spirit of yes. Anything is possible. I believe it. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie Lang for the board update. And Bonnie, I can drive the slide deck for you if you like, if you want to just give me a nudge each time or.
Okay, will do. Thanks. Thanks, Andrew. Really appreciate it. And again, if anyone has questions along the way, feel free to drop them in our chat box, and we'll look forward to answering those after a very brief board update here. So let's go ahead to the next slide, Andrew, if we could. So first of all, I just want to take a minute for the board to acknowledge all the really hard above and beyond work that Andrew, Katrina, Carrie, and Shay have been doing, in addition to countless other volunteers. So thank you, thank you, thank you. There are superheroes. Some of I have grandkids 4 and 6 years old, and that's basically the focus of how they live. So I can't say enough about how strong and committed and innovative and collaborative and dedicated this particular group is. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go on to the next situation. Compared to others, Andrew Church talked about an analysis that Andrew Gregg has done. He's a recent ChI board member and also a recent graduate. And he did a competitive analysis, and I'll just give a couple highlights. He had a work conflict, or he would be presenting this today. He reviewed 25 programs that offer either spiritual direction or some kind of chaplaincy program. And in addition to looking at what was in those programs, he spoke with students who chose other programs to find out why ChI might not have been selected. He then created some analysis, and he'll be writing more thoroughly in the upcoming newsletter that our communications team puts out. So stay tuned for that. So could I get to the next slide, please? So what we found is what most of us already know. ChI is unique. It's well established. It's not one that's just being developed. We have that history, which is decades of years old. And it represents approximately a year of graduate school. So that's the level of academic and experiential experience that we have. A third point that separates us from the pack and is hard to communicate, we could use your help with that, is that the level of student care and support is considerably higher than many others. So this is a program where we really step up to make our students successful. The fourth point is really critical. It's a faith group endorsing body through community ordination. So we come together, and many of the other programs for that are listed don't have this very important characteristic. So we just want to highlight it as much as possible. The next point really separates us from those that are academic only programs. We have experiential and applied theology combined. So when people get ready to go out and apply what they've learned, we can really do that well. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm currently serving as a minister in a small church, and it is so great that I've had the ChI experience in doing that, because I can just kind of roll with whatever comes my way, and even call other ChI friends to say, hey, how can we get through this situation? And that is, I know it's not the focus of ChI, but I have to say that ChI really set me up really well for this particular situation. The next thing is that ChI focuses on sacred community and justice, which is becoming more and more valued in our social framework these days, in addition to the more traditional spiritual care. And then we have our in-depth spiritual psychology. And those programs together really set us ahead and apart from others. And as Andrew mentioned, thanks to Andrew Gregg's analysis, there's a pricing increase that's coming. It's been implemented already for spiritual direction, and our chaplaincy program will increase approximately, we don't know the details yet, but the total will be around $1,500 around July 1st. And that will make us competitive, not more expensive than similar, but competitive with what others are doing, and giving just a little bit more breathing room so we can get staffed up to help support the new bulge of students that are going to be entering the ChI programs. Okay, next. This is an article that came out that inspired the idea of ChI is meeting the future. And the subtitle, the title of this article from The Atlantic on January 16th was "Religion is Not Dead." And most of the statistics that we take a look at is that, yes, organized religion is not increasing. There's been a very steep decline. And if you look at the age in synagogues and churches and mosques, many are aging. However, what this article talks about, asks the question, where are Americans finding meaning in their lives, and how are they marking the passing of sacred time? And thank you, Carrie, just put the link for this article in the chat box if any of you want to read it. So with those two questions, I'd like to just point out a couple of sentences that I think are very relevant for ChI. So Andrew, could I have the next slide, please? So the key thing that religion fills is meaning making. And that's one thing we learned in depth at ChI. And this is happening more and more with spiritual directors and chaplains. And according to a recent survey that Gallup conducted with the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, 1 in 4 Americans across all kinds of backgrounds, both religious and non-religious, have met with a chaplain, and that number is going up, and they've had positive experiences. And then the final point is that a growing number of groups support spiritual leaders who are fostering new kinds of spirituality. And the sentence before this is that many of the traditional seminaries haven't caught up yet to this change of the public. So this is where ChI is indeed meeting the future. And we're very optimistic about what is coming our direction. And we just want to stay awake so that we can meet this opportunity with the strong experience and background and resources we've had up until now. Okay, let's go on to the next slide, please. So the final point I wanted to make is that how can we all help move ChI forward? And this is what I call in sacred community. The photograph is taken down near Santa Cruz, close to where I live. And you'll recognize maybe a few familiar faces there. We have Amy Allen from the class of 22, Reverend Lauren Van Ham from the class of 99, the first class. And she's standing next to Christine Morgan, who lives in this area, also from the first class. I'm there, as well as Ren Gannon Pinto, who's from our most recent class. So the five of us had a little chance just to get together in person and to exchange what's going on in our lives. And it was so inspiring. And I'm pointing this out because if you haven't had a chance to do this, it really was a wonderful experience. And so that is just one way that we can all get together and be part of the ChI experience and move us forward, is by keeping those communities alive. The other things that Andrew mentioned, a couple of them, and Carrie sent out a link, is that we have our upcoming retreat, May 1st through 4th in Santa Cruz. For those of you that are able to make it, it looks like it's going to be very rich and fulfilling. Ordination is May 6th with another wonderful class, and that is going to be in Berkeley in person. And again, we can attend on Zoom, which is a real benefit. Last year, or the last ordination, Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think about half of those attending were on the Zoom attendance. Every month, we sponsor ChI Talks. And you can contact Reverend Carrie if you want to present a topic for the rest of the ChI community. And then I would also highly encourage us to attend so we understand and can keep up with what some of the other talented folks in our community are doing. I mentioned the ChI gatherings. And then something that's coming soon for those of us that are not on the West Coast is the Northeast Retreat. And we've had a couple now in person on the West Coast. And so we're doing feasibility to find out how that might look. So I just want you to realize that we are expanding our geography as well as our reach. The final point is thank you all for the financial support that you've had up until now. I am going to point out that our donations for our size organization on a monthly basis are a little low. So altogether, we get about $2,000 a month from everybody. And we know that not everybody donates every month, but we're just encouraging, if you possibly can, to help in any way financially with those growing pains that Andrew talked about. So those are the highlights of the board at the moment. And I think, Andrew, if you could go on to the next slide, we are now open for any and all of your questions. And I see one from Maria, thank you. Among our 500 graduates, what percentage are active versus retired? And I think Reverend Carrie might be in the best spot to have some sense about that.
That is a good question, and it depends on what you mean by active, because sometimes our clergy emeritus or emerita will say, my ministry is also involves talking to somebody in the grocery line at the grocery store, or it's the way that I present my front yard so that when people walk by, they get a little spiritual enrichment. Our alumni list right now, the people that we have actively in our communication circle is about 330. So, about there. Yeah, we're very lucky to have such a large number still engaged.
Great, thank you. Other questions that may have been prompted from the information that Andrew or I presented, or anything that did not come up that you might be curious about? It's great to see all of you, by the way. Thanks for taking this time out of your day. Yes, Nicholas.
Nicholas.
Hand up.
Hi, sorry about that. Getting my pizza out of everybody's face. So I was curious about two things. I'm curious about the percentage of donors that would be considered very large donors, and also regarding those large donors, if they exist, how much. I know this is difficult to estimate, but what kind of resources in terms of time and personnel are devoted to cultivating those kind of large donations and fostering those relationships?
Okay, that's a great question for Andrew Church, and Sarah Donnell, if you would like to jump in at any point to help with that answer, that'd be great. Great question. Thanks, Nicholas.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas. I love that you asked that question. That's right. It's actually in my job description to know that. And so the short answer, excuse me, the short answer is a very small percentage of our donors are what would be considered major donors. So we probably have less than 10 who provide the bulk of our donated support at this point. And probably less than a half dozen that are responsible for most of that. So you've heard of the rule, the 80-20 rule, that 80% of the work gets done by 20% of the people, or 80% of the donations come from 20% of the people. I think ChI is more like 90-10 right now. The good news in that is that it's a small list of people to really stay in touch with and develop great relationships with, and grow. And there's a lot of upside. So we can add, I think, more major donors to that. The challenging news is the reason that's so small is because we're in a little bit of which came first, the chicken or the egg scenario right now, especially with staffing so tight. That's my job, to do that donor development and stewardship. I'm spending most of my time right now since last summer when we had the layoffs doing human resources, IT, finance, operations. And so at the end of the day, there's not a lot of time or not a lot of me left over to do really the most important or the most valuable work that I can be doing. So Sarah Donnell on the board and Bonnie, and we've had a bunch of people really trying to help us crack that code, and we're making some progress. So we're spending more time on it. We need to, you're going to be hearing about a fundraising, a fund development committee, a working group that will be have some board members on it. It'll also have some community volunteers on it. And so I invite you to get involved and share your questions, your passion, your energy and ideas, because we're going to need it as we grow. Did that help answer your question, Nicholas, or was there anything more specific? Okay. I'm hearing no objections. Nothing else. I hear Sarah, I see you've got your hand raised. Sarah Donnell. Can you unmute? And no? Let's see if I can do it.
There we go. I needed permission to unmute. And so I don't know if Nicholas, if there was something else you wanted to say, because I got the notification that participants aren't allowed to unmute ourselves. But I just wanted to leap in here and say, because I also saw Lucy's comment in the chat that like, come on, the fundraising working group is like, really wants to grow and needs people power. And even if fundraising doesn't sound fun at all to you, it actually, like, in the ChI sphere, I've been really learning to love it very quickly. Because for me, this was the place that just made the most sense to lean in with my time. I'm someone who, like, I give a little bit of the finances because I don't, but I'm just not like financially flush at the moment. So I give what I can, but then I have more time to offer fundraising than like US dollars at this moment. So that's how I'm participating. And if you fall into that group, I encourage you to join me as like a small time monthly donor, and also maybe reaching out to see how you might connect with the fundraising working group. Our next meeting, if you can't come to the meeting, it's okay. Just reach out to me. I'm putting my info in the chat. The next meeting is, I wrote this down, it's March 31st at 12:30 Pacific, 3:30 Eastern time. If you can't make it, I'll send you a recording, or if you just want to meet and talk with me one-on-one, or email back and forth, we can find something for you to do that will fit your comfort zone. But I really enjoy this, because something that I have been wanting and that I hear from a lot of ChI folks is just like a hope for connection in this community. And it's been such a cool way to be connected and feel connected. I feel connected through my little monthly donation. I feel connected through the thank you calls that I make to donors and get to hear what they're up to. And I just have the most amazing talks, and I've gotten to know people across ChI generations that I otherwise wouldn't be able to be in touch with. And there's so many ways too. If you're a writer and you don't want to be on the phone, like I can give you things to do. If you prefer to, I don't know, look at a spreadsheet or just bounce ideas off of each other. If you've got storytelling or personal passions that you want to share, any of that can be put to work in this really, really crucial area for ChI right now. And we can just yeah, we can go from there. I know there are other volunteer funnels at ChI too, so I don't mean to eclipse that if that was somebody else's talking point, but this is my passion project at the moment. So please be in touch if you're willing, y'all, even if you don't know what on earth it's gonna mean. I encourage you to reach out. And maybe that, I don't know if I actually answered a question. Feel free to ask more questions about what that means and what the fundraising effort is. But the hope is to free Andrew up to be able to really focus like an executive director on that top 10% of donors, and to shoulder some of the weight of keeping our donors connected, increasing our donor pool and our community connection as a whole, through storytelling, through sharing, through contacts with each other. And then eventually, hopefully, maybe we will be able to increase staff to have more focused advancement possibilities in place. But right now, it's us.
Right. I think what I'll just add is that what Nicholas identified is a huge growth opportunity, and we haven't quite figured out how to do that yet. As you know, when I was talking to people, one thing that we are all painfully aware is that as chaplains and ministers, we're not rolling in a lot of money if that's our primary source of income. So if anybody has, this is where we have to reimagine our ability to attract the money we need to do what we really are meant to do. So we're just open for creativity and support. Thanks. And then I noticed another question about volunteer opportunities. Oh, Nicholas, do you have another question or comment? Follow up? Oh, you're okay.
No, I was waiting to be unmuted.
Okay.
So I was thinking about what Andrew said earlier about radar, and also then Andrew mentioned sort of close by that mentioned something about volunteers. And I guess I'm wondering, what ChI's status is in regards to some kind of like financial advising team or committee or whatever, like a group of people who might volunteer pro bono their financial expertise in being part of that radar.
Bonnie, would you speak to that? I think the answer is yes.
I love that suggestion and that idea. ChI, as in many other nonprofits that the rest of you might be involved with, when people show up to be part of our community, oftentimes financial acumen is a skill set that's lower on the list than many, many others. We have been without a treasurer for about 6 months now. And it looks as if we have a lead for somebody really strong. And we are, I will speak for myself. Anybody that has financial expertise that wants to get together and take a look and figure out how we can do things better and stronger is, please let me know. I'll put my contact information in there. And I am using this as an example for everyone to see that the staff right now is so stretched that even volunteering for things is sometimes a struggle. So the board is trying to pick up as many of those things as possible. So Nicholas, if you or anyone you know has financial expertise, could you please reach out and let's see what we might be able to come up with. Thank you. And then volunteer questions, if somebody on staff wants to pick that up as we're getting close to the end of our time together.
I would say basically any volunteering that you're able or willing to do or have ideas about, I would love to hear. I'll put my contact information in the chat. It's also just andrew@chaplaincyinstitute.org. I would love to hear from you, have conversations with you about that. I want to say, is Michelle still on the call? Michelle Gantz? Yes. Michelle's been doing some volunteer coordinating for us. So I don't want to volunteer Michelle for something else, but we do have a pathway and a couple of options to get involved. So I would love to have have the time to chat with you about that. So yeah, I'll put my information here as well.
Okay. And okay, anything else on the volunteer from any staff that might be on the phone or other board members? Okay. If not, thank you all for attending. I think I will turn the meeting back to Carrie for a closing so we can stay on time with everyone. Again, thank you all for your interest and your questions and your support and participation. So it's been a pleasure and it's been an honor. Carrie?
And I'll say too, if you think of a question later, staff is all our first name at chaplaincyinstitute.org. So this is our favorite part of our work, is connecting with our community, our students, and our clergy and faculty and each other. So please, if there's anything we can do for you, anything we can offer you, reach out. We're here. Now, as we close our time together, I want to offer sincere gratitude for you, for each of you, for taking your time to be here today, for saying yes to coming to engage with community, for your service in the world, for living love alive in this world. And I'm going to invite us to put our hands up towards the screen and to send our blessings and our love to one another. send our blessings and love beyond time and space to all of our students, all of our alumni, all of the people serving with some little piece of ChI in their heart and soul, our faculty, our board members. And then let's send our love and blessing beyond to all the people of the world, to all the beings of the world. And then on deep into our earth and beyond our moon, into the stars and the galaxies beyond. Our love encompasses all, and we hold each other in love as we are held by the divine universe, all that is. Let us put our hands in prayer at our hearts and sending you so much love as you head off into your day. My love goes with you each. Blessings, dear one. Blessings, blessings. I'll stay on if anybody's got any questions.